Hey, what's going on, man? Coach Tyler here with Black Diamond Softball and Fitness, and we got a brand new episode of the Foul Pole to Foul Pole Daily Show. Today's episode is brought to you by the Carolina Patriot Collegiate League. Make sure you go check those guys out. I will put a link for them down in the description below. Today, I want to get into the Mary Nutter Classic. If you guys aren't aware of what the Mary Nutter Collegiate Classic is, man, it has been going on for a very long time. And of course, 2024 is no different. We've got a couple of big games on the first day. Yesterday, February 22nd, was the first day of the Mary Nutter Collegiate Classic. Had some good games, like I said. Probably one of the better games that took place was San Diego State and Missouri. Big-time game, 3-2 win for San Diego State. At the end of the day, you really don't know what you're going to get when it comes to these early season matchups and stuff like that. So we have a lot of good games. Do want to get into that one a little bit later on. Some of the other key matchups would be Mississippi State and UCF, a 2-1 pitchers duel. Both pitchers look great early on. Both teams played very well. Wisconsin ends up beating Oregon State 3-2. Rutgers over Hawaii 14-7. BYU beat Bethune-Cookman 18-5 in 5 innings. Mississippi State was able to handle Notre Dame 7-4. Oregon beats UCF 5-3. Another great matchup. UCF has been playing some of the top teams and really getting set for postseason play already this season, early on in the season. Oregon State was able to get a win 7-3 over Bethune-Cookman. Rutgers beats UC Riverside 7-5. Baylor tops Oregon 3-2 in a great matchup. Again, San Diego State beats Missouri 3-2. BYU hands UC Riverside a loss 5-3. Baylor beats Notre Dame in a great game 10-9. And the last game of the day was Missouri topping Wisconsin 3-2. So as I said, probably my favorite matchup of the day would be that San Diego State-Missouri game. A very well-pitched game. Not a whole lot of offense from both teams, but the pitchers from San Diego State, we had two. We had Ali Light and Didi Hernandez. Both of them combined to only give up 7 hits and 2 earned runs. Both of them pitched very well. Now, from the Missouri side, Lauren Krings went 6 innings, gave up 3 hits and 3 runs, struck out 7. So she was wheeling and dealing. Had a couple of chances really for the defense to make some plays. But at the end of the day, what a great game. San Diego State is one of those sleeper type teams. You never know what you're going to get when they show up, man. When they get the defense rolling, they are hard to beat. It's hard to score runs on that pitching staff. So great game all around. And with that being said, I think this weekend you're going to see the pitching kind of catch up. I know that early on in the season, there's been a lot of lopsided scores and a bunch of runs being put up on the board. But I think now you'll see the pitchers start to dial it in, hit their spots. And then also the coaches kind of know they're starting to learn their rotation a little bit and be able to mix it up some. You got some pitchers that it took a little bit of time to get them rolling for some teams. Now, there's other teams out there that are just mowing kids down. And I seen a post yesterday from Patty Gasso. I think her number was 6. I'm not 100% sure, but I think her number was 6, maybe even 8. She said that she could throw in at any time and she trusted to have the ball in the circle. And I think a lot of teams are going with that. You have more of a pitching by committee. Now, there still are some great pitchers, and a lot of times you're going to have a lot of great pitchers on one team. But I think gone are the days of having just one workhorse ace where she gets 90% of the innings pitched. I think nowadays you're going to see multiple aces on a staff, 2, 3, and 4 maybe, and they might come in and give me 1 or 2 innings, and then another pitcher comes in and gives me 3. Then I have one that maybe faces a couple batters, and then before it's all said and done, we've thrown 5 pitchers in this game, and we've won a game 5-2. Something like that. So she was talking about keeping them off balance, not really knowing who we're bringing in. So you have to prepare for all of them. That kind of stuff. You can really work matchups, lefty versus righties, and really look at the scouting reports and say, okay, hey, this team has, a 150 batting average against pitchers that throw sub 64. And so I've got, 3 or 4 pitchers that really have some off speed stuff, or, their fastball isn't higher than, let's say, like 67 or something like that. So they can be able to mix it up. So I'm looking forward to that and see how that plays out this year as far as teams that have a pitching staff versus teams that have maybe just one or two. You look at teams kind of like last year with Clemson that really only had two pitchers that were able to have a lot of success with Valerie Cagle and Millie Thompson. And then as the season kind of wore on, you could see they sort of ran out of gas. And I'm not taking anything away from either one of those pitchers, but I think the offenses and the hitters are so great, and the coaches are so great at making adjustments and those type of things that you need more than one or two. You look at somebody like a Stanford. Kennedy last year pitched the majority as a freshman. So this year, she's going to toe the rubber the most for Stanford, but she also needs a few that can kind of, be the polar opposite style of pitching in that circle. So Kennedy's very powerful and mixes her speeds up very well, but she lives in the top of the zone. That's where her strikeouts and stuff like that are. Well, eventually the third and fourth time through a lineup, any good team is going to be able to make an adjustment. And they're not going to beat the ball all over the yard against somebody like a Kennedy, but you want to maybe change the plane a little bit or something like that, and maybe have two or three other girls that have something where the ball just acts a little bit different coming out of their hand, maybe a different windup, maybe their timing is a little bit different, and maybe their cut pitches cut a different way, or they just look different. So that's sort of I think where everybody is going with that. And I think this weekend will be a microcosm of the season. There's a mix of teams where you have some that are the perennial type teams, that the ones that are already in the top 25, have been in the top 25, and are the powerhouse teams. And then you have some that not a whole lot, pay too much attention to until we get into the postseason play, and more people start to pay attention to those types. At the end of the day, we're still early in the season. Like I said, man, we're only here just after day 2 or just after day 1 of the Mary Nutter. We're here to sit in February 23rd, and we got a lot of softball left to be played. So Friday, we got a couple of big-time matchups. The UCLA-Nebraska matchup, that's a win that I think UCLA's got to get. Nebraska is down right now, of course, without Jordy. So let's see how good Nebraska sort of bounces back without Jordy. And then UCLA, we all know it. They've been struggling this year, and I think at some point they're going to right the ship. Now, they have gotten some big wins this year, don't get me wrong, but they've also had some lopsided losses. And at the end of the day, you got to kind of figure out what's up with that. Another matchup that I'm looking forward to this evening is the 8:30 matchup with Central Florida and Oregon State. My buddy, Coach Lau, of course, he is the hitting coach, assistant coach over at Oregon State. And, I'm a big fan of what Central Florida is doing with Jazz and Chloe and just the whole squad. You got Doherty there. There's a lot to love with Central Florida. I know they've lost a couple of tough ones as of late, but those losses, man, are the ones that's going to make the team stronger. So I'm big on Central Florida. I think another key matchup will be those matchups with Cal State Fullerton today. They're playing two really solid SEC teams. Of course, today at 3:00 they play Tennessee. That's a big time matchup. What Tennessee team shows up? Is it going to be that team that just puts a ton of runs on the board, or are they just going to pound you and they're going to beat you like a 3-1 game, something like that? And then, of course, Cal State Fullerton plays Missouri. Missouri is a solid team. Missouri has beaten Clemson earlier this year. Had a couple of big wins outside of the Clemson win as well. They are in the SEC, so they do have to go through some tough teams like an Alabama, like a Tennessee, like a Florida, and Georgia and LSU, and they got a tough road to hoe for sure. But man, outside of the SEC, I would not be looking at wanting to play a Missouri team right now, and especially the later as you got into the year, maybe in the postseason as well. Missouri is just a tough out for sure. A little bit later on in the day, you have San Diego versus Utah. I'm a big fan of University of San Diego. I think they play the speed game very well. Also have the power game. I think the pitching is coming around. I think they're a little bit young throughout the up and down the lineup, but I like that young fire that's there. And you also have UC Riverside playing Baylor. 8:30 tonight. So a couple of big key matchups really early on. And the Mary Nutter is pretty much the last early season tournament where teams are kind of traveling the country and matter of fact, in and outside the country. Just last week, they were in Mexico playing, had a couple of key matchups there too. But now you're going to start to see teams kind of settling in, getting into their conference schedule and playing towards the postseason. Such a fun season. You got teams playing all the time. And, injuries happen. You got slumps that'll happen, but these slumps, they only play upwards of about 60 games in a season, maybe 55, 50, 60, something like that. So, if one of these players goes into like a 2-week slump, it's not like baseball where you've got 162 games. These athletes are having to bounce back quick. And always remember they're student athletes too, so they're dealing with classes, they're dealing with just normal life stuff. So if your team isn't faring too well or your favorite player right now isn't faring too well, send them some prayers, send them some good luck wishes, send them some positive vibes. It's a long season, but it's also a short season at the same time. So, so far, loving college softball. For me, it's all about that competition that day. At any point in time, you could see someone like a Central Florida go on a tear and win maybe 7 or 8 out of 10, or you could see a UCLA bounce back and get 8 or 9 wins out of 10 games, something like that. And of course, everybody's waiting to see sort of how good Oklahoma is going to be this year, and rightfully so. You're talking three-peat, and Patty Gasso and staff, they just know how to win. You can see them blow teams out, and then you can also see them when they put their young guns in. The stars of the future are able to go in there and hang out. And I'm not kidding you. If Oklahoma was to put together a JV squad, I would almost that you take all their starters or take their 12 regulars, take their 12 regulars and sort of set them aside, and then take the other 13 or 14 that aren't necessarily their regular players. I bet you that squad would be ranked in the top 25. I bet you. It's just a pedigree that Oklahoma has. So I ask you guys, is there a team out there that you could see really beating them in a 3-game set? Now, I know that, we could have some one-offs and stuff like that, but is there a team out there that you could see right now stacks up with an Oklahoma team? Whether it's a Tennessee squad, or it's an LSU, or it's a Georgia. Is it a Florida State? What about Duke? What about Clemson? Can UCF get hot? A Missouri team, a Baylor, an Oregon, someone like that. Is there someone out there that you say, hey, I can't wait for this matchup, or I hope they match up at some point? Last year they were talking about Clemson matching up with them. Last year they were talking about maybe UCLA, maybe Florida State, maybe Texas. Oklahoma State is right there. In-state rival, Oklahoma State. A lot of people are big on Kenny Gajewski. Kilfoyle is there. Oklahoma State's got some young guns. Man, they have got a first baseman. I ain't kidding you. Carly Godwin is, she is it. Like that, that's her. She is her. You know what I mean? I watched her the other night before Oklahoma State got out of Florida. They played a game with Florida. They matched up with them because the St. Pete Clearwater Invitational sort of got rained out and canceled, but Oklahoma State was still looking for a matchup. And of course, the two head coaches, they used to be buddies playing. They actually played baseball together at Oklahoma. So they got up with each other and said, hey, let's put one together. And they did. And Oklahoma State, man, they look good. 3-0 game. Both teams, Keegan Rothrock pitched well for Florida, and Lexi Kilfoyle pitched great for Oklahoma State. And then Carly Godwin gets a pitch, probably a ball, but she's able to get extended and pull an outside pitch, just really flick the bat at it, but has tons of power and was able to absolutely crush it. So you got freshmen up and down the lineup for Oklahoma State that's already making an impact. So for me, if it's anybody that can do it this year, I think it's Oklahoma State, and we'll get to see that matchup a couple of times. So excited for that. That's going to do it for this episode. I hope you guys tune in over the weekend. We will be updating you on the Mary Nutter and other tournaments and stuff like that as well, other invitationals, stuff like that as well. We will be highlighting some of the better action. We will also have some game highlights over on our YouTube channel. So if you haven't checked out the YouTube channel, please do so. That's youtube.com/@foulpole to foulpole, just like it is here, foulpole to foulpole. And I hope you guys have a blessed day. If you know someone that likes softball and wants to hear a softball podcast, make sure you share it with them. And if you share it with a friend, be sure you tell them you love them.